Okay, so here's our first guest here, Willie Mack. Hey, Willie. We got it working. We got it working.
Good.
I had to reboot the computer. Okay, all these people need to come in here, see?
Gotcha. Just hit admit all.
Oh, shit. All right. And then can you put me here? And then put them here? Deb knows how to do that. Can you tell her how to do that? Put us all. Hey, Tom.
Always. I don't want speaker active video. Where did Debbie go?
She's right there. Show her how to put the.
How did you get him on top in the main window?
So go to his window.
I can't hear him now. I can't hear now.
Can they? Well, I guess.
Test. You can hear?
You guys can hear, right?
We can hear great. Yes.
Okay.
That's what I always did. You use the bathroom and somebody wants it.
Gotcha.
So I rebooted my computer. The hot mic 3 times, it didn't work. Okay. There we go.
Willie.
Saying she wasn't feeling well, so she might skip it.
Christmas being you.
Could be.
All right, let's do this cake.
Make me co-host.
A lot of people. Hi, Dan, how are you? Thanks for letting me use you for a minute last week.
Oh, that's great. It's the best study I've ever done, Danny.
All right, I got controls from here too. Good deal.
Yeah, Debbie used to do it by her phone. But I mean, you can do it any way you want.
Well, I've got it set up like that. I think that might be easier.
So can we block this one out so I can just, yeah, there you go, perfect.
And then do we have the YouTube video set to record? It does say it's recording on here.
Yes, well, no, I have to, I don't know how to do that. I have to transfer it over,
Okay.
but I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I do that when I get back home tonight.
Good deal. We are recording.
Yeah.
So
So what I do when I get home tonight, I'll just, now there's more people trying to.
Did you watch last week?
No. Let's see my notes.
I need to try and mirror
Oh, just a second.
image so they can read the screen. Can they read it like that?
I should be able to read it. Hey, can you guys read this board?
Yes, yes.
Missed week one.
Yes.
started with week two.
Yes, we can. I can.
Does it say we are the problem? Because there's a glare on the first two.
Go clean it up. Go.
Okay.
Um,
If we make you the speaker and make it big, it's easy to read if anybody's having a hard time reading
So I
it.
didn't get on top of that.
Is that any better?
Oh, perfect. That's great.
All right.
Thank you.
We lost half the people.
I was saying last week, I missed.
You can take a seat. All right, everybody, let's grab a seat. Actually, now we'll move this. Okay. Glad everybody's here. Looks like we lost a bunch of people already. That's quick. I don't know what I said last week. But, okay, so last week was a disaster. And let me explain to you why and what happened. We got a lot of people on Zoom. And then there's a lot of people in Europe that watch the next day when it goes on to YouTube.
But Leanne can't hear it, you can't hear it, because she has the hearing of a hawk.
You can't hear?
Yeah, we can hear.
They just
Yes, we
You
can.
guys mute yourselves there, please.
Yeah.
All right. So what happened last week was, as we were letting all these people on before the meeting started, I put it
Okay, I
on
don't want all
pause.
this.
And, you know, one time when before Dr. Bob died, a guy asked him if he could explain recovery, if he could sum up recovery. And Dr. Bob said, that's easy. I could sum it up in 2 words. He said, humility and responsibility. And so we'll talk about responsibility for a minute. Because Ginger wasn't here last week, it's her fault that,
I was here, I
Thing.
just didn't get here till 6:43.
no, I screwed up, so I never took the pause off. So the whole meeting last week was not recorded. So this here is the video. This is the channel for YouTube to watch these classes. BB Study 2022. Now, if you go on there and you look at week 1, there's going to be a quick 1-minute message from me to tell you to go to last year's channel to watch week 1. And last year's channel, in case you're interested, is Danny Falcone 2021. And if you go to, so if anybody's trying to catch up, watch the first week. This one here last week was not recorded. And also, the other problem we had was there was more people than the Zoom account allowed on here. So a bunch of people got knocked out and weren't allowed on there. So for you guys that are on Zoom, I suggest you get on early so you got your space. Because there's 100 people and that's it. That's all we can put on there. So there was some mad people last week that didn't get on Zoom, and there was even more mad people who get to watch the recording. And like a guy in Europe said, but I saw last year's already.
Girls, come here.
All right. So this week we got Ginger here, and we are not on pause. We are recording. So it will be on YouTube tomorrow.
So for those of us who can't write that fast, what do you say the 2 words were for?
Dr. Bob, humility and responsibility.
Oh, there we go.
I only took that. Dodge my responsibility.
Yeah, but it's good.
Yeah. So that's how he summed up recovery. Okay. Yes. Oh, okay. So again, for you people on Zoom, if you got a question, I can't see your hand, so just interrupt me. And if anybody here has a question, just raise your hand. Okay. So last week,
Can we please make sure that everybody who's on Zoom is on mute?
okay, if everybody's on Zoom, mute yourself, please.
I don't know yet.
Okay, yeah, everybody can hear all that little Some baby's crying in the background there. All right. Last week, we touched on this, that the program and the big book are both broken into 3 parts. So the program of recovery is broken into 3 parts. Now, when I talk about the program of recovery, remember the triangle, I'm talking only about the recovery part. Okay, we broke down the triangle last week, okay? And there's the unity and there's the service part. We're not discussing that. We're only discussing the recovery part. And that part of recovery is broken into 3 parts. What is the problem? What is the solution? Program of action. Hey, everybody on Zoom, mute yourself, please. Okay. So if you go in your big book, go to page 19 for a minute. So I said that this was broken down into 3 parts. And just to show you how we kind of reference that to the book.
Danny?
You're muted, Danny. You're muted, Danny.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can everybody hear me? Okay. You're the ones that are supposed to be muted. All right. Thank you, Dan. All right. So on page 42, on the second paragraph down, it says, then they outline the spiritual answer and the program of action. You see that there? So the spiritual answer is what is the solution? And the program of action is what is the program of action? And on page 19, I don't know why I told you to go there first, but on page 19, on the 3rd paragraph, it says, we have concluded to publish an anonymous volume setting forth the problem as we see it. Page 19, 3rd paragraph. See that? So what is the problem? And then what is the solution and what is the program of action? And that's how the book is broken down. Now, before we go on, we started talking last week about some of the slogans that you hear. And we didn't go over some of the really, really good ones that I want to just touch on because there's some doozies out there. So people hear all the time, you hear people say the steps are only suggestions. The book says, here are the steps we took, right? And so the steps are the steps are only suggestions, it says. Let me think if I should know where that is. So the book says here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery, right? And we kind of twist that up. The suggestion is not the steps. Here are the steps we took. We took these. Now, if you want a program of recovery, then here's the steps that go with that. So the steps are not the suggestion. The program of recovery is the suggestion. Okay. I have another suggestion for you. It's if you're going to jump out of an airplane, I suggest you put on a parachute. But of course, it's only a suggestion. You don't have to, right? So the steps are not suggestions. They're a set of directions. In fact, in the original manuscript, Bill wrote them down as a set of directions. And here's another good one that we hear all the time. Relapse is part of recovery. Okay. You hear that a lot. Relapse. Now listen, if you have relapse and you're coming back in here, that's your story. And that's not to knock you or to make you feel less than or anything like that. That's just your story. That's not my story. Okay. Relapse is not part of recovery. Relapse is quite the opposite of what recovery is. Recovery is about not drinking and not using, right? And then growing spiritually. And relapse is not that. So relapse is not part of recovery. That's different. It's part of non-recovery, really. Another good one is, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. We hear that all the time. And usually when people like us talk about I'm right where I'm supposed to be, it's because I'm not wanting to do something they should be doing. Maybe you are right where you're supposed to be. But maybe if you got off your ass and did some work, you'd be someplace else. You know. So, and then this one I want to talk about is meeting makers make it. You hear that? So the national statistic for recovery for Alcoholics Anonymous in the United States, I'm not talking about Europe now. The national statistic is around 15% success. Okay. So that means that 85% of the people in the meetings don't stay sober. Okay. They don't make it. When we talk about meet and makers make it, no. People that work the steps and help others make it. People that practice these principles in their lives make it. Okay, those are the ones that make it. And let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about that statistic. So I just gave you a statistic, and that's 15% nationwide recovery. I don't have, can I see your big book? In your big book and forward to the second edition. On Roman numeral 20, page Roman numeral 20. The top of the page talks about AA grew in leaps and bounds. And it says, for this, there were two principal reasons: the large number of recoveries and reunited homes. These made their impressions everywhere. Of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapses. And among the remainder, those who stayed on with AA showed improvement. So the second edition was printed and came out in 1955. So in 1955, the AA statistic is that 75% of people got sober. 50 at once and 25 after some relapse. So 75% of people got sober that came in and really tried in 1955 when that came out. So here we are in 2022, and it's been this way for a long time. The national statistic is around 15%. So the question that you have to ask yourself is what has happened from 1955 to 2022 that's made that's quite a difference. That's a 60% difference, right? So what do you think has happened? Anybody want to take a guess what's happened? Watered down, okay. Got away from the book, okay. Not working the steps. Well, yeah, and you know, people say, you know, drugs are more prevalent, or you know, alcohol is more acceptable, or there's a lot of little reasons that you may get a 0.5% or 1% for, you know, but you can't make up that gap, that 60% gap. But something interesting happened in 1956. And in 1956, the AMA, the American Medical Association, declared alcoholism a disease. And when the AMA declares something a disease, hospitals have to treat it. If it is a disease, it has to be treated in a hospital. And so ever since 1956, a lot of good-hearted, kind people that, you know, really want to help, truly, sincerely want to help. Because the hospital started opening up wings in the hospital to, you know, to treat people like us. And these people were totally clueless. Good people, kind-hearted, really cared and really wanted to help, but clueless. And little by little, then people started opening, and companies got involved and started opening buildings and treatment facilities. And, you know, that stuff took off like crazy because there's money in it. And today, if you go to a treatment center today, if you carry the message and you go to any of these institutions, you'll see some really problems. One of the problems is you go to a treatment facility today that gets federal funds, they can't even have a big book in there. Yeah, can't have a big book. They said it's too religious. But every treatment center you go to, whether they have big books or not, they give you a sheet, bunch of papers. Here's your first step. Here's your second step. Here's your third step. You can't leave here till you do your fourth step, right? I sponsor people to come out. I don't sponsor people in treatment. I tell them, when you leave treatment, here's where I'll be at a meeting, come and see me, and I'll be glad to help you. Right now, you're there, you're in their house, do what they tell you to do. Because what we do here is a contradiction to what they do in treatment facilities. And I spent 5 years as a counselor in the treatment place. So, and the sickest people I met in AA work in treatment places. There's some good ones, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about everybody, but so what's happened is, somebody said it right there, that we've gotten so far away from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the clear-cut, precise, specific directions that we talked about last week, that we've just gotten too far away, and we've watered down this program, and this is what we're left with, a 15% success rate. Now, the good news is it doesn't have to be that way. And that's what we teach in here, and that's what we try to pass on to others is, you know, taking the book apart and following the directions that are in the book.
Okay, the 15%, is that just in people who have tried AA, or is that across the board in the entire recovery?
That's supposedly people that go to 12-step meetings and the success rate they have. To be honest with you, I'm not sure if they've mixed all the 12-step meetings up or just AA. But even if you took AA's own statistic, it wouldn't be much better. People that are trying to get sober. Okay, so that's an important lesson for us there. It doesn't have to be that way. And if you want to be sober, then you have the opportunity. But here's the thing, and here's who's to blame. And I'm not going to blame myself, because I truly try, but I'm going to blame a lot of you people. Because when you sponsor people, I don't know what you're passing on. And I'm not pointing the finger at anybody in particular, but you all know people who I'm talking about. Somebody will go up to somebody after the meeting and they'll say, all right, would you sponsor me? And they say, yeah. You powerless over alcohol? Yeah. Is your life unmanageable? Yeah. You believe in God? No. You're willing to believe in God? You're willing to believe I believe in God? All right. Okay. You ready to make a decision, turn your will in your life on? No, not really. Well, you have to. Okay. All right, let's write a fourth step. And most people completely bypass these two parts of the program of recovery. What is the problem and what is the solution? And the 12 talks about first step is the only step we have to do 100%. Admitting that I'm alcoholic and my life is unmanageable doesn't seem like 100% to me. That seems about like 1%. We're missing 99% here. So on page 58, right? In the book, 59, I'm sorry. So let me ask you this. And when I ask questions, guys, if you've been here and you notice, or you went over this with a sponsor or something, don't answer. Because you're not helping anybody by showing how much you know. This is not the place for it. So for the people that don't know or haven't been through this, I'm going to ask you a question. What is the first step in recovery? What is the first step in recovery? Do you know what the first step in recovery is?
Yeah, but I'm sure that's not the answer.
Okay. Does anybody want to take a shot at it that don't know? Admitting you have a problem? Okay. Huh? Surrender? Okay. So on page 59, when you ask people, what is the first step in recovery? They always say, we admit we're powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable.
Lack of power.
So this is not the first step in recovery. This is the first of the 12 steps. Okay. The first step in recovery is on page 30. Second paragraph says we learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. Then look what it says next. This is the first step in recovery. I know you've read that many times. I know you've seen that many times. But the problem is we want to stop reading the big book and we want to start studying the big book. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. So there's a step before the steps. If I say, would you sponsor me and say, yeah, why are you powerless? And I say, well, I'm powerless, I'm powerless. So what's the first step? I'm powerless over alcohol. My life's become unmanageable. Well, all I'm doing by saying that is agreeing with the statement on page 59 on the first of the 12 steps. The first of the 12 steps on page 59, to agree with that is not to do the step. It's just agreeing with the step. I don't get anything from agreeing with that. And that's all you can do if you don't do what's on page 30. The only thing you can do is agree with the statement on page 59. I'm powerless over alcohol. My life is unmanageable. So let's go back again to page 30. It says, we learned we had to fully concede to our innermost self that we were alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. We're not going to do that today, but we will do that in here. And I'm going to make you a promise that by the time we've done with the first step, you will know the truth about yourself. And once you know the truth about yourself, you will never, ever be able to drink or use again on that truth. I promise you that. But once you understand the truth about yourself, and once you have thoroughly done a 100% first step, you will never be able to drink or use on that truth again, ever. The only way you can drink or use after that is to be cut off from the truth and by a lie. And that's why it's so important to stay hooked up to this program and hooked up to God and continue to grow spiritually so we don't get disconnected and cut off from the truth. Okay, so when we're done with step one, you're going to go through an exercise that we do. And when we're done with that exercise, the only possible conclusion you can have is, damn, look how powerless I am. Look how my life is unmanageable. And you will understand that at a depth and level that you don't understand it by just saying, yeah, I'm powerless over alcohol. Saying the first step. What does the first step say anyway? What's the first step say? We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, dash, that our lives have become unmanageable. We tend to say a lot, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and our lives have become unmanageable. It does not say that. If you put the word and in there instead of the dash, then you're insinuating that the unmanageability is directly responsible from the your powerlessness. Now, your unmanageability is because of your powerlessness. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol and our lives have become unmanageable. So that's what that is saying, is that my unmanageability is because of my powerlessness, and it's not. If you're familiar with the English language, the word, that little dash that's in the sentence means that it's the same sentence, but it has two completely different points to it. So it's like point 1 and point 2. That's what the dash means. So we admitted we were powerless, 1 point. That our lives have become unmanageable, another point. I'm 30 years sober. I guarantee you, every morning when I get up, my life is still unmanageable. Not as unmanageable as when I first got here, but it's unmanageable. And therefore, I need to make my connection with my God and get hooked up. And that is still important, as important today as it was 30 years ago. So we need to understand that, right? So two separate different things. So step 1 has two completely different points that it's trying to make. The first one is that we're powerless over alcohol. And the second one is that our lives are unmanageable. Okay. So, by the way, this here, what is the problem? What is the solution? What is the program of action? When Bill Wilson was trying to get sober, and he couldn't get sober, and I don't want to get into the history of AA too much, but just briefly touch on it, is that what happened for him when he came out of Towns Hospital and he was getting loaded and he was sitting there drinking, right? And his friend Ebby called him up. Ebby Thatcher called him up. It's the guy in the book that he came over and saw him, right? And Bill said he was bright-eyed and, you know, and something different about him, and he was sober, right? And he brought Bill the message because Ebby had been going to the Oxford Group, which was an organization, a religious organization that thought they had a cure for alcoholism. And they had 6 steps that they worked. So the 6 steps, they're in your book, but the 6 steps of the Oxford Group is what Ebby was working. And so he came over and shared that with Bill. Now, when Bill was in the hospital, Dr. Silkberg had shared with Bill the importance of the physical part of the disease along with the mental part of the disease. But when we start talking about the doctor's opinion, you're going to notice that he talks a lot about the physical aspect of the disease, right? And so Bill got that from Dr. Bob. And when Ebby came over, he got these 2 things. He got the solution, what is the solution? And he got the program of action. There's 6 steps that they had. Bill Wilson became the first man on earth armed with all 3 things necessary to recover from alcoholism. He knew what the problem was, he knew what the solution was, and he had a program of action. First guy to ever have that. When he goes to Akron, Ohio, and he's on a business trip that fails, and he gets introduced to Dr. Bob. Dr. Bob was a drunk, couldn't stay sober, right? Ironically, Dr. Bob was a member of the Oxford Group. So Dr. Bob knew what the solution was and what the program of action was, but he couldn't stay sober because he didn't know what the problem was. And when Dr. Bob met Bill, Bill shared with him what the problem was, and Dr. Bob became the second man on earth armed with all 3 things necessary to recover from alcoholism. They both knew what the problem was, what the solution was, and what the program of action was. 2 guys. And here we are today, all these years later, as a result of those 2 guys figuring this out. Pretty cool, right? All right. So, and now I want to talk about the book for a minute. Can I steal this again? Yeah. So, oh, I'm sorry. All right. So go to your forward to the first edition. And if you notice, it tells you that this was written in 1939. Okay. 1939, first edition. And it says, We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body to show out alcoholics. Well, we did that last week. But here, so in 1939, when they wrote this, they're claiming to have 100 people, right? They're claiming to have 100 people. My understanding was like 80 something, but you know, being a good drunk, 100 sounds better. I don't know how true that is though, so, but go to the second edition, 1955. 1955, look at the second paragraph. It says there's 6,000 groups whose membership is far above 150,000 members, recovered alcoholics, right? So 1939, you had 100. 1955, you got 150,000. And go to the third edition. The third edition in 1976, and there was over 1 million people. And the fourth edition came out over 2 million people. So if you started off with 100 people, and then you got 150,000, and then you got 1 million people, and then you got 2 million people, what is that telling you? Friggin' thing works. Something's working here. So not only is this proof of a program of action that works really well for us in our lives, there's two parts in this book. I'm not going to go over them now with you, but I promise you we will go over them. Twice in the book that Alcoholics Anonymous makes a statement and stamps their approval. Anything they write in here is their approval, right? They stamp their approval on these two statements. Both of them, they made these statements in 1936 or 1937. They printed it in 1939. And it was not medically proven until 1976. In this book, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, are two medical statements that Alcoholics Anonymous has said that was medically proven in 1976. How do you like that for a powerful book? You show me a book that can do something like that.
Okay, so when we're talking about, he used a problem by talking to Dr. Silkworth, right?
Wait a minute, does anybody need me to translate? Go ahead. You can translate.
So then he knew about program of action talking to Abby because of the 6 steps of Oxford Group. The solution, did he get it from doctor?
Well, the solution was part of the Oxford Group had the solution, a higher power. Okay, it was part of their steps. But I want to know what you guys are doing on the Ukrainian border. That's what I want to know. All right. So, yes, both of these he got from Ebby, from the Oxford Group. And this he got from Dr. Silkworth. And so he became the first person to have all three. And you need to have all three of these. I know you're sober, and however long you've been sober, but if you really, really want the benefits of this program, then you'll understand all this and you'll pass it on.
One thing that I think I've heard in the past was that okay, so the solution that it is that I thought that came from Dr. Young, or however, when he said, I can't help you. The only thing that can help you is a spiritual experience. So I thought that's where that got credited.
Yeah. The Oxford Group had that as one of their steps before Dr. Young said that. Yeah. So they give Dr. Young some credit in the book, in the big book. They do give him some credit. And they give the Oxford Group some credit too. But that's where it came from. That was part of their program of action. The Oxford Group been around a long time, and before the Oxford Group was an organization called the Washingtonians, and the Washingtonians was another religious organization that thought they had a cure for alcoholism. And they were in like, back in when Lincoln was president, I think, you know, in those times. And they got really big. They had a couple million people nationwide, which was a lot in those days, because, you know, it was just riding a horse, is the only way to get around, right? But they, and they folded too, for the same reasons that basically that the Oxford group folded. And that's why we have our traditions that keep us together, okay? All right. Anybody got any questions on any of this? All right, I think we could get busy now in the book. So let's go to the doctor's opinion. We've talked about the forwards, right? And let's just scoot over to the second page of the doctor's opinion. And I think I said to you last week, whenever we're studying the book and you come across mind, mental, body, physical, make a little mark in there so you see how many times. I believe it's around 156 times it mentions that. Okay. So here we are. The first paragraph on the second page says, the physician who at our request gave us this letter has been kind enough to enlarge upon his views in another statement which follows. In this statement, he confirms that we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. So I said to you a couple minutes ago that Dr. Siltwork focuses a lot on the physical part of the disease. Okay. And then at the bottom of this paragraph, he said, but we're sure our bodies are sickened as well. And the doctor's theory that we have an allergy to alcohol interests us. So let's stop a minute there. A very interesting concept. Dr. Silkworth, describing alcoholism, continuously uses the word allergy rather than addiction. Even though he was a doctor at a medical, at a place that took care of people with addictions, alcoholic addiction, drug addiction. But Dr. Silkworth keeps calling this an allergy, okay, more than once. So again, if you've been through this, don't yell out the answer. Does anybody not know what the difference between an allergy and an addiction is? And this is important. So does anybody not, raise your hand if you do not know the difference between an allergy and an addiction? Okay. Okay. So anybody ever know a heroin addict? Anybody know an opiate addict? Okay. An addiction, when you appease an addiction, whatever you're addicted from, you take that into your system. If you appease an addiction, it lessens the desire for more. So if a heroin addict takes a shot of heroin, it lessens the desire for more heroin temporarily. Granted, it's temporary. But you don't see heroin addicts shoot some dope and then shoot another right behind. No, it lessens the desire for more. Okay, you may see crackheads do that, but that's not an addiction. That's something different. So the addiction lessens the desire for more temporarily. Okay. If you're addicted to nicotine and you smoke a cigarette, it lessens the desire for another cigarette. Temporary. If you're addicted to caffeine and you drink a cup of coffee, it lessens the desire for another cup of coffee, right? Temporary. But all of these addictions, they all do the same thing. They lessen the desire for more. The allergy, on the other hand, is quite the opposite. I suffer from bad hay fever. And Oklahoma is really bad for me. And when I get the hay fever hits me, I want to take a fork and scratch my eyes. That's how bad. My ex-wife was allergic to shellfish. And Christmas Eve, the Italian people, we have a feast of shellfish, all kinds of shellfish. And every Christmas Eve she'd eat it and the next day her lips would be all swollen like that. She'd look like a pucker fish, and she'd break out in hives, right? So what happens when, if you have like allergies and your eyes get itchy and you go like that, or you have a rash or something from allergic reaction, right? And you scratch it, what happens? It greatens the desire for more. If I touch my eyes when my eyes are bothering me, I'm finished, because I'm going to be like this for the next 20 minutes. And if you scratch the hives or the rash, it greatens the desire for more. Okay. So what really is an allergy? If we have an allergy, what really is it? An allergy is an abnormal reaction to something. And in our case, it's alcohol or drugs or whatever you're doing, right? But an allergy is an abnormal reaction. And the allergy will always greaten the desire for more. And Bill says, where we were on doctor's opinion, the doctor's theory that we have an allergy to alcohol interests us. Yeah, sure, it interests us. As laymen, our opinion to his soundness may of course mean little, but as ex-problem drinkers, we can say that his explanation makes good sense. It explains many things for which we cannot otherwise account. That's why, when they understood what an allergy was, that's why I keep drinking. You see, this twofold disease is I got a mind that wants to kill me and a body that ensures it will, right? My mind tells me to do it. It lies to me. It tricks me. It makes me believe something. I get blocked off from the truth. And then I drink, and then my physical part kicks in, and it ensures that I keep drinking, right? So my mind's trying to kill me. My body's trying to kill me. So when I understand that I have an allergy, then I understand a little something that can help me down the road, that I'm suffering from something that is going to greaten the desire for more if I mess with it. If I rub my eyes, I'm going to be, it gets bad. And the allergy always gets worse, never better. When I appease the allergy, it gets worse. Does that all make sense to you? Everybody understand that? Okay. So on the bottom of that same page, in the doctor's opinion, says, though we work out our solution on a spiritual as well as an altruistic plane, we favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who's very jittery or befogged. Does anybody not know what altruistic means? They use that word twice in the book here. Does anybody not know what it means? Altruistic comes from altruism, which means giving unconditionally, basically. What we're talking about for ourselves here is giving of ourselves without looking for anything back. I came into recovery and all these people wanted to help me. And my first question is why? What's in it for them? Because I come from the streets. You don't do something unless something's in it for you, right? But what's in it for them that they want to give me their time and help me? And it's altruism, is they give of themselves, looking for nothing in return. Yes.
And the allergy and
Okay.
are we just talking about alcohol here? We'll talk about any kind of whatever. I mean, as far as people who follow an addiction, but you're right in a sense that I guess when you take a drink, I guess it appeases you for a minute, but then you get crazy. And so it's the allergy You want more?
Well, when you say we call it addiction, who are you talking about?
I don't, I mean, they say, or we all say it's like an addiction, I guess, I don't know, I mean, that's what it means here a lot. Is a heroin addict, it's the same thing, it's an allergy, right?
No, heroin addict is an addiction.
Alcoholism is an allergy. is what you're saying.
Alcoholism is an allergy. That's what the doctor keeps referring to it as,
Okay,
as an allergy. Yeah, you could be addicted to alcohol,
yeah.
but the difference is that it's not like other addictions that when you do it, it lessens the desire for more. It's more like the allergy that when you do it, it greatens the desire for more. And that's why Bill said it explains a lot of things that didn't make sense to us. You know, why do I go there swearing that I'm just gonna have a couple of drinks and go home, and then they close the joint at 4 a.m. and I'm still there, you know, and I gotta go find an after hour joint because I ain't going home. Right? So that's the, you know, that's the puzzling, that's the baffling feature of alcoholism as we understand it. This utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. Right? And what can explain that? Well, the thing that explains that is that we suffer from an allergy that is requiring us to have more. That's what explains that. So does that make sense? We okay with that? Got a question? Let's talk about it. We don't have to be done by next Tuesday.
Clear what the disease concept is. Disease of alcoholism.
Yeah, addiction is a disease also. Yeah, yeah. I'm only splitting hairs with the addiction and the allergy to understand that what we really suffer from is an allergy that when we appease that allergy, when we put something in our system, is going to greaten the desire for more. And that explains what happens to us. But the disease concept is we're going to thoroughly go through that here. We're going to thoroughly go through that. We've already touched on it last week, just a little bit, that we have a twofold disease. We have a disease of mind and a disease of body. You know, so it's different than, like I tell you, my ex-wife was allergic to shellfish, right? But that was only the physical aspect. She didn't have a twofold illness with that. She didn't suffer from her mind telling her, I gotta have some lobster, you know, I gotta eat lobster, I'm gonna have some crab, I'm going nuts, you know. She didn't have that. She had enough intelligence to say, I can't eat that, it's not good for me, right? So, but we don't have, we're getting attacked on two fronts. We're getting attacked on our mind and our body. And our mind lies to us or tricks us and allows us to do what we already know we shouldn't do. And then when we do, then the body takes over and ensures we keep doing it. So the interesting thing, and I use this all the time, I might be getting ahead of myself, but there are two specifically different parts of the disease. So mind and body, right? Mental and physical. And so here's how I explain this to you. And it's silly, and it's a little funny, but it's so true. So we're going to use, this year, we're going to use Doug as an example. Okay, we're going to use Doug, and we're going to make believe that we have a normal person here. Okay, now not Doug. Over here is a normal person, right? And listen to this, people. If it were possible, of course it's not possible, but if it were possible for me to remove Doug's head and remove this normal person's head and put this normal person's head on Doug's body and put Doug's head on this normal body, if that were possible, do you know what would happen? This Doug's body with his new head, normal head on Doug's body, would go to a party and his head would tell him, oh, I can have a drink or two. That's not a problem. And something would happen when he took a drink or two because his body, the disease would, the physical part would kick in and the guy wouldn't be able to figure out why he couldn't stop drinking all night. He never did that before. And eventually Doug's head on this new, good, clean, non-alcoholic body would fuck that body up. Eventually. Sorry, I try not to curse, but sometimes it comes out before I think. But this head would say, I gotta have the booze, and the body can't handle all the booze that head wants. But he'd force it in him, right? You remember back when you started and I listen, the first time I drank, you know, I don't know about you, but I started off on the corner with the guys with the barrel burning on the corner and leather jackets and our hair slicked back. And we had the top shelf stuff, Boone's Farm apple wine. You know? And I took a slug of that bottle and it was horrible. But I wanted to be cool. I wanted to be with the guys there. I wanted to be part of it. And I forced that poison in me. I didn't even like it. I forced that poison in me and I got so sick, I threw up all night after that. But where was I the next Friday? Back on the corner with the guys and the great Boone's Farm apple wine. Forcing that poison in me. Okay? So my head started right away. That the basket got a hit down there. Guy's got a $50 bill in his hand. Throw that basket down.
I couldn't get that personal.
So can you picture that? Switching the heads around, and that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a mental disease and a physical disease. And the mind will lie to you and trick you and make you believe something that you shouldn't believe, even though when you know it's not, you shouldn't. And it blocks you off from the truth. Once you understand the truth about yourself, the only way you can ever drink again is to be blocked off from the truth. And if you're hooked up to God and the people in these rooms and you're doing this deal, you won't be blocked off from the truth. And if you stay connected, you're going to be fine. You'll be okay. So does all that make sense?
Neither one of them could be cured.
And neither one of them can be cured, but you know, they could both join AA and do this deal. And you know, Doug's head on the new body wouldn't have a problem coming to AA. The normal head on Doug's body would go, well, what the hell am I going to AA for? I'm not no alcoholic. And he'd go to one meeting and say, I don't need that shit. And he'd get drunk the next day, right? And one of these days he'd crawl back in the rooms because his body wouldn't handle it too well. And this body here that's non-alcoholic would get messed up pretty quick. Because that mind on that new body is telling that body, you know, take more. No. Let's go over to Roman numeral. Well, let's see. It's 2 more pages over. The bottom of the one page, it says, of course, an alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical craving for liquor. You see that? Bottom, the last sentence on one page. And then the next, craving for liquor. And this often requires a definite hospital procedure before psychological measures can be of maximum benefit. Well, see, my book is different. 24, Roman numeral 24. All right, so it's the first paragraph says, we believe and so suggested. You got that page? We believe and so suggested. Is everybody there?
Yeah.
What page?
XXVIII.
XXVIII. XX. XXVIII. We believe and so suggested a few years ago that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is the manifestation of an allergy. That the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all, and once having formed a habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them and they become astonishingly difficult to solve. So again, numerous times he's using this word allergy again, right? But look at what he's saying here. He's saying that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class. So what he's saying here is very important. He's telling you that the craving is a physical reaction to having a substance in your body. That you cannot have a craving without having any, and the reason I'm stressing this because we talk differently. Even though we may know what we mean, we're saying something that's not really right. A lot. So I've had guys, let's say, new guy come up to me and he said, you know, can you give me some help or pointers because I'm really craving a drink. And I say, how long you been sober? And they say, oh, I've been sober 60 days. Well, you're not craving a drink. You're obsessing on a drink. And they say, I don't give a shit what you call it. I want to drink bad, you know? And I say, yeah, I get that. I get that you want to drink bad. But here's the thing. When you understand that a craving is a physical reaction to the alcohol. You don't have alcohol in your system, so you cannot have a craving. What you have is an obsession for alcohol, and that is of the mind, and you can change your mind. We change our mind 100 times a day. I'm going to wear these pants, no, I'll wear those pants. I'm going to eat lunch here, no, I'm going to eat there. I'm going to go see him, I'm going to call her, I'm going to do this. We change our mind all the time, right? Now, granted, the concept of changing your mind when it comes to taking a drink is a little more difficult than where am I going to eat lunch? But it's the same concept. You can change your mind. You have that ability to change your mind. You might need a little help. You might need to talk to Guy. You might need to talk to somebody in the room. You might need to get on you, but you can change your mind. You are not a slave to your thoughts anymore once you come in here and learn the things you need to learn. You can change your whole life in here by doing different things and living differently. That's what we do here. So you're not craving a drink at 60 days sober. You're obsessing on a drink. Stop obsessing and get busy doing something. So the doctors over here on this page, what we read here, is talking about this phenomenon of craving, and he's calling it the manifestation of the allergy. So that's what happens when the manifestation is just a big word for meaning this is how it turns out, right? So when you drink, now there's a process that happens. And if you're not too far advanced in your alcoholism, the process is kind of a little three-step deal. It goes like this. I take a drink, I ignite the allergy. The manifestation of that allergy is a craving. I want more, right? But it is possible to take a drink and not ignite the allergy. Sometimes we could muster up some willpower. Sometimes circumstance gets in the way. And if we're not too advanced in our alcoholism, we might be able to take a drink and not fall prey to the craving because we haven't set the allergy off. So I know somebody that is allergic to chocolate, but every now and again, she can eat a little bit of chocolate. Not a lot, but a little bit. Okay. So what happens is when she eats that chocolate, she is not setting off her allergy. And when you're early in your stages of alcoholism, you may be able to take a drink and not set off your allergy. In fact, Bill talks about this in the book, right? Let's skip over to that for a minute. We only got a minute. You know what? Let's leave that till next week. We only got a couple minutes. Anybody got any questions before we close? Somebody remind me next week what we were talking about just now, because I won't remember. And anybody got any questions before we close up? We passed the basket for the May Club for letting us use the place and paying for their coffee and all that stuff. And, all right, guys, thank you. I appreciate it. See you next week, same time, same channel.
Thanks, Danny.
All right.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you so much, Danny. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Danny.
Yes, and it is recorded tonight.
Thanks,
Thanks, Danny.
Want me to just leave that alone?
Yeah. What is? Yes. Then the we drink, we ignite the allergy, and the manifestation of that is a craving. Good, buddy. How you doing?
Been a while.
Yeah. Doing all right?
Yeah.
Let me close this off.
Drew Benton?
I haven't talked to him in a while. So long, guys.
Thanks.
Let me see. How do I end this here? All right. Yeah. See you, honey. See you guys. Good to see you.